This is the first of 10 steps to mastering rails. Like a baby learning to walk, we need to break this down into some easy steps so that we're not trying to run before we can crawl. The first step is going to be 50-50 on a box. This is simply riding straight on and straight off the box with your skis kept straight the entire time. Just make sure you're nice and comfortable skiing parallel. It's super important with this one to keep your skis perfectly flat base. If you try and edge, it's worse than ice and you will slide out. Coming into this box here, we don't need too much speed, just enough that you'll make it to the end. Nice easy stance, shins in front, look to the end, pop off. Hitting a feature like this will give you the feeling of what it's like to transition into the feature and off of the feature. Now that you've mastered the 50-50 on the box, stage 2 is going to be 50-50 and then adding a shuffle into it. This will get the feeling of sliding sideways before you fully commit to getting on the box sideways. Before we take this to a box, you want to get comfortable doing a shuffle on the snow first. So find a nice piece of flat ground away from any features. You can use your poles to balance and then just move your skis from side to side like this. On the snow, it's easier to have your feet together, but for the box, you'll want the feet a bit wider, shoulder width apart for stability. For your first time trying this, get on the box first before initiating the shuffle. Be really patient. As you're initiating the shuffle, remember to keep some weight through your front foot. This will allow you to stay stable throughout the shuffle and not slip out backwards. Once we've got the shuffle down, it's important to take it to a longer feature, initiate the shuffle earlier and hold it. It's important with this one that early on when you're doing these shuffles, you try and get your skis to fully 90 degrees. That's important because when you go to a rail or more difficult boxes, you'll need to have your skis at 90 degrees in order to hit the feature. Next step in this process is the ski slide. So now that we've done the shuffle to sideways, we're gonna take it a step further and actually pop on, land on the box sideways, hold the slide throughout, and then come off. This can be one of the scarier steps in this process, apart from later when we go to a tube, because what tends to happen is you might slip out and fall backwards. To avoid this, you want to have your feet super planted, nice and shoulder width apart. A step that really helped me when I was learning is imagining you're going to reach down for your front boot. This will help keep your weight evenly distributed across both of your skis. It's a good idea to do this on the same box feature that you've been doing your shuffles on, so you know that you're comfortable sliding at 90 degrees. So before you take this to the box, you want to make sure you're comfortable popping to 90 and then popping out of it. So find a nice piece of flat snow and just practice popping 90 degrees and then popping out. When you're practicing this, visualize that you're sliding the box, so hold it at 90 for a second and then pop out. Make sure your vision is looking in front of you, not down at your feet. So coming into this box now, remember to fully commit to the pop. Maintain even pressure so you don't slip out. Just like that, you've done your first ski slide. So now we can take this one to slightly longer and narrower boxes and just keep practicing them until you get really comfortable. Step 4 in this process is one that often gets overlooked, but it's a really key foundation you need to unlocking a whole host of tricks. And this is going to be the unnatural slide. So sliding your other way forward from what we just did. It's good to take this one back to the 50-50 shuffle first, and also working on popping and shuffling off snow before you taking it to the box. So all the points we went through before, the exactly the same for unnat. Come in, get wide, pop out. Like the normal way, let's try the shuffle a few times to get comfortable with it. Once you've got the shuffle, we can then do a fully committed unnat slide to straight. Step 5 in this process is going to be box slide to switch. Now up until this point, we've been using counter rotation to learn how to slide the boxes, and this is a great starting point. However, it can become limiting when you go on to try harder tricks, so we want to make sure we're comfortable coming out both directions. Like with the other steps, we're going to practice this on flat ground first. So what you can do is take your skis off actually, draw a nice line in the snow, and then practice popping onto it 90, having your shoulders kind of neutral this time rather than your chest facing fully forward. looking at the end of the line you've drawn, and then coming to switch. Keep your vision looking behind you so that you're not coming off completely blind. Come in, pop to 90, look at the end, come out, switch. So when you're ready to take this to a longer feature, you need to be a little bit more patient with the set so that you don't over rotate while you're still on the box. You maintain the 90 throughout the whole box until you get off the end. And it's really important to practice this both ways, as we did before with the shuffle and the ski slide, so that you're building up that nice base. If you aren't super comfortable with riding switch but still want to give that step a try, it's okay to land switch and then revert. However, you will want to get more comfortable riding switch to master more rail tricks. If you want to learn more, check out our ultimate guide to skiing switch. Next up is step 6, and this is going to be scissoring your edges. This is one of the most important steps in this whole process, because not only is it going to give you the control to spin either way out of the feature you want to, or come out forwards or backwards, but also when you go to more narrow features or rounded tubes or rails, it's going to give you the control and the stability when you're on the rail. A great way to practice this is to find the edge of a run or cat track just like this one, and practice engaging your heel, so pushing it down so that the tip of your ski is lifting up. Also, you'll be having your ski on a slight angle to engage your inside edge. Now that you've dialed in the heel edge scissor, you'll also want to practice your toe edge. So this is just the same thing, but pushing down on your toes so that your heel, the back tail of your ski is lifting up. Also remember to engage that inside edge. When we take both of these to a feature, we don't want to forget the downhill pressure on our front foot so we don't slide out backwards. When you're ready, come into the box nice and controlled. Pick a line slightly to the side so you can really dig in your heel. Yeah, now notice you don't need to dig your heel in too much, because if you do, you'll probably spin over 90 degrees. Once you're ready to try the toe side scissor, take a line, aim for the other side of the box this time, jump on 90, dig your toe, come out switch. As you may have noticed, digging in your heel will bring you to forwards and allow you to do front side spinning tricks, and digging your toe will bring you to switch and allow you to do backside spinning tricks. Once you've mastered the scissors, both heel side and toe side, your natural way, remember to try it your unnatural way so that you're getting comfy and building up that nice foundation as we move through these steps. Step 7, this is the next scariest step in the process, and this is taking what you've learned on boxes to a tube with a bit of an urban on. So what that means is, instead of coming on straight like you have been before, you're gonna have to come from the side, and the lip is gonna be a little bit lower than the rail is. One way to get over the fear of an urban on feature is to first try popping over from one side to the other, fully clearing the feature. That way you know you have enough pop to get on it. And then the next step would be getting onto it for a slight second and then just falling off early or sliding off early the other side. That's perfectly fine too, and then that can build up the confidence to fully committing to the rail. So it's important to remember when you're hitting an urban feature like this, when you're coming on from a side angle, is to aim not for the top of the feature, but slightly on the side. This will allow you to hit it with your weight and not slide over to the other side, but instead catch you and allow you to slide the rest of the feature. All right, now when you're transitioning from a flat tube to a down tube, it's really important that you keep evenly distributed weight, but put even more pressure on your downhill edge or your downhill ski. This will allow you to stop from sliding out. The most common mistake when going from a flat feature to a down feature is stepping on two-footed with your back foot first. What this will do is cause you to put more weight on your back foot and then slide out. You want to make sure you're jumping on both feet at the same time and really putting pressure on your downhill ski. So step 8 now is going to be using those scissor skills we learned earlier to do spins out and switch ups. Although we've just been sliding tubes, it's a good idea to go back to a box for trying your first spins out and switch ups. So the first and easiest one we're going to learn is the front side 270. This involves digging in your heel edge like we did earlier and bringing it around all the way past 180 to switch. This is the easiest to learn because you can actually see the landing the whole time. It's exactly the same as the heel scissor. You just want to apply a bit more pressure and pop at the end of the rail. It's not required, but it is definitely easier to do this trick with a box that has a drop off like the one we have now. Next up, we got the backside 270. Just like we did earlier, this time you're gonna dig in your toe edge and you're gonna apply a little bit more pressure like we did with the heel, spin off the rail, turning back up the hill, so you're gonna be slightly blind for a second, and then bringing it all the way back around to forwards. Because you are coming around blind with this one, it's important to have strong commitment to get the full spin and not catch an edge. All right, with this one, I'm gonna come in from the other side now, dig in our toe, look back over our shoulder to get the spin around. Using our head to look back up the rail will encourage the rest of your body to follow and get the full rotation. After you got those down, the next progression is gonna be to do frontside and backside swaps. We're gonna start with frontside swaps. This one's just like doing a front two, except you're gonna be doing it a little earlier so that you jump and land back your unnatural way on the box. When you're first learning it, it's easier to do this towards the end of the feature, so you're only sliding a little bit of it on your unnatural foot. So I'm gonna come in again, thinking about digging my heel edge in, and then I'm just gonna pop the front two a little bit earlier. Next up, we're gonna do the backside switch up. This is basically the same process we've just done, except we're gonna do the back two now a little bit earlier so we land back on the feature. This time we're gonna take a line, aiming for the other side of the box, dip in our toe, do the back swap, come out forwards. It's good to practice these on a box first for the extra stability of the flat surface, and now we're gonna go do them on a tube. Once you're comfy hitting urban down rails, tubes, and you got the front twos out of the box, now you can take it to a tube. With this one, it's basically the same as doing it on a box, except you're gonna wanna make sure that you're really properly locked into the tube before you try it. And with this one, when you get onto the tube, have your shoulders a bit more open towards the end of the rail than you normally would. That way you can get the spin around when you come off the end. Be really patient. When you get towards the end of the rail, then you can set that heel scissor and spin the front two out. So with a box being flat and a tube being round, it's easier to shift your weight either on your noses or more on your heels when you're on a rounded rail. So with this trick, it's gonna be a lot easier if your weight is slightly on your heels. If you're on your noses, it's gonna be really hard to get that front side spin around. Also with the box, you can kind of get away with being not quite 90, but with a tube or a rail, you really need to be committed to full 90 and then spin the trick. Otherwise, when you go to scissor, you'll just immediately split the rail. So now we're gonna go do the back two. Everything we just talked about with the front two applies, but just the opposite way. So when you get on, have your shoulders 90, or a little bit rotated this way so that you can snap the two around when you get to the end of the rail. When you get on, make sure that you're being nice and patient, full 90. Wait till you get towards the end of the rail to commit to that toe side scissor edge, and then spin back up, look up the hill, and get the full 270 around. Once you've got the front 270 dialed, then you can try the front swap. It's basically the same thing, but we're just gonna do the front 270 a little bit earlier. This one, it's super important to set your heel scissor earlier in the rail than you did with the front two. I like to do it pretty much when I get on the rail if I'm doing a front swap. And then make sure that you're really popping so you get the full 180-degree spin and you're not gonna split the rail. So when you're first trying out front swaps on a rail, to make it less scary, what you can do is kind of think about it as an early front 270 and just do it towards the very end of the rail. So you're just getting like a front swap to bonk. And then you can work your way up to doing it earlier and earlier in the feature. When you're first starting out with this trick, it's naturally gonna be easier to go to switch. When you get more comfortable, you're gonna do the front swap and then re-scissor to go to forwards. Now we're gonna do the back swap. All the same things that applied when we went from front two to front swap also apply from back two to back swap. So if you're comfy with back twos, you'll be able to get this back swap. Just make sure when you get on, same thing. Be nice and patient, get that toe edge scissor, and make sure you're really popping so you're not gonna split the rail. Step 9 is gonna be different ways to get onto a tube. We're gonna start with a lip slide. So we've talked about urban on, where you're coming on from the side of the rail and going noses first. This is where you come from the other side, pop your tails over the rail, and then land sliding. We can try this on a box first. All you're gonna do is come in from the other side than you normally would, and practice bringing your heels up and landing in the center of the box. So when you're taking your lip on from a box to a tube, super important to remember what we discussed earlier about urban on, about having your weight slightly to one side when you get on to catch yourself. So with this one, you're gonna come in from the side, really exaggerate getting your tails up and over the rail, and then land with your weight slightly on your noses to stop yourself from falling off the other side. So taking your lip slide from a box to a proper urban on feature can be a bit scary. One thing you can do is just practice popping over the rail entirely and doing a bit of a shifty as if you're gonna do the lip. Next up is switch on. There's two ways of doing this. There's switch lip and switch tails. We're just gonna start out with a box and just practice riding on switch so we get the feel for coming into a rail feature backwards. And then we'll talk about switch lip and switch tails. All right, so if you're scared about going switch into a box for your first time, what you can do is just pop your skis off, find a nice flat section, get into that nice switch stance, and then just practice popping to 90 a couple times. So you get the feel for it. Make sure when you pop to 90, you're looking downhill as if you're on the rail. So it can be quite scary trying this for the first time. So make sure you find a nice ride-on feature like this one. Come in with a nice slow amount of speed to make sure your line is aiming straight at the box. And then just come on slowly and let your body naturally rotate around. All right, to work our way up to switch lip, first we got to make sure that we're comfortable popping from switch to 90 on the box. So to start off, we're just going to come in from the center, popping from switch to 90, and then we'll work our way up to going more from the side once we're comfortable for a proper switch lip. This time we're going to try proper switch lip. So coming in more from the side, imagining that we're hitting an urban on feature. Really want you to think about lifting your noses up and onto the box when you're popping 90. So once you got comfy popping on switch on a box, we're ready to go switch lip. So with this one, it's just like your lip slide, but instead of getting your tails over the rail, of course, you're gonna wanna get your noses over the rail and then landing slightly on your heels to stop yourself from falling over the other side. In terms of your line into the feature, I like to come in at a little bit of an angle. I find if you come in switch lip dead straight onto an urban on, you'll probably fall off the side. So yeah, if this is our tube here, you're gonna wanna take a line in that's kind of about that. That's a pretty good angle. This is a bit too straight. So yeah, try and come in with an angle like this. Next up, we got switch tails. Same process as switch lip, but we're gonna come in slightly from the other side. Now this time it's about bringing your tails up and over the rail. Really focus on exaggerating getting those tails up and over the box. That'll prepare you for when you take this trick to an urban feature. So when you're ready to take your switch tails from a box to a tube, super important, just like switch lip, it's all about patience and really exaggerating getting your tails up and over the rail. So be really patient with your pop before you spin to 90. So just like with the switch lip, you're gonna wanna take a line that's a bit angled rather than straight, and you're gonna catch yourself with your noses to stop yourself from falling off the backside of the rail. All right, step 10 is gonna be spinning onto features. For these, you're gonna wanna make sure you're pretty comfy doing 360s and switch 360s on jumps before you try this. So if you are on snow, I'd recommend taking your skis off, finding a nice flat section and practicing this just in your boots first. So you can maybe draw a line to pretend like you're jumping onto a rail. Come up to the side of it. Nice big pop. Land, look down the hill, and then do this a few times. Make sure you're getting a nice spin, initiating it with your hips, falling with your shoulders and your head. So with 270s on, you're gonna have a natural tendency to keep spinning once you land on the feature. We're gonna do this on a box first, and with that, it's gonna be a bit harder to scissor, so it's okay if you keep spinning. When you take it to a tube or a rail later, it's easier to lock because you can get that nice scissor to stop your rotation. So when you're coming in, line up the box straight, take a bit more speed than you usually would, and make sure once you get the full spin around, look to the end of the feature. As you notice with that one, I'm not fully scissoring on the box, but I am driving my front edge into the box to stop the rotation. With a rail, this would just naturally go into more of a scissor. When you're ready to take your two on from a box to a tube, it's super similar, except you're gonna take an angle like we did with switch lip, and you're gonna land with a bit more weight on your noses and really wanna exaggerate that front foot scissor like you learned earlier in this video to stop your rotation. All right, now we're gonna do switch two, same as we did with the two on. We're gonna try this on a box first. Remember that the switch two pop is gonna be a bit harder than the forwards two on pop. So the trick with this one is just being super patient, timing it so that you're initiating the spin once your sort of heel pieces have reached the lip of the takeoff. The nice thing about switch twos on both lip and tails is that you can see the rail the entire time. So now we're gonna take switch two onto a tube feature. With a box, it's a bit harder to distinguish between lip and tails. You can try doing the two on from either side to get the sense for what it feels like. But yeah, when you take it to a tube, just remember to be super patient. With lip, it's getting your tips over. With tails, it's getting your tails over the rail. I like to think about it as like getting my tips or tails over first and then snapping the rest of the two around, being really patient with it. All right, you're gonna want a bit more speed than you would for a regular switch lip. Last but not least, we got forwards lip two. We recommend trying this one last out of all the 270s on because it is the hardest. You end up going fully blind, turning your back to the rail. A trick for landing on the rail is to come in and quickly look at where you want to land on the rail, and that'll help you with your aim when you spin it around and go blind. So for lip 270 versus regular 270 on, a quick tip is to actually take a straighter angle into the rail because when you pop lip, you tend to drift over to the side. So if you take an angle, you have a tendency to fall off the other side, but if you take more of a straight parallel angle to the rail, you'll land on it properly. All right, so made it to the end. You've mastered all the fundamentals of rails. Of course, this isn't a fully exhaustive list of everything you can do on rails. This is just to give you the basics of everything you might want to try on rails that would unlock a whole possibility of other tricks on rails. You know, there's no end to what's possible on rails, so go out there, get creative, try harder features, try more spins off, on, swap combinations, 1 foot slides, land holding safety, whatever you want to do. A quick note, when you're stepping up to harder features, you'll notice some of them are curved, some of them have kinks in them. So you're gonna wanna get used to shifting your weight around. So for example, if you were hitting a flat down feature, you would wanna shift your weight to match the down gradient of after the kink. For anything curved, you're gonna wanna lean into the curve. So if it's this way and I'm sliding right foot forward, you put pressure on your heels, or if it's this way, then I would put pressure on my toes to match the curve of the rail. And just like that, you have all the fundamentals to go out and master rails. So we hope you have fun and go crush it at your local park.